lighting people, today's lighting industry innovations don't just spring into existence. They're the result of tireless research, development, and creativity from individuals, organizations, and companies investing in groundbreaking designs and technologies. From components to fixtures to controls, these efforts have culminated in thousands of patents that define and protect the modern landscape of the lighting industry. So we thought it would be a good idea to dig deeper into this topic with a legal expert and leading authority on lighting industry patents. So we're pleased to be joined today by David Radulescu, whose credentials are nothing short of impressive. He holds degrees in electrical engineering and law from Ivy League universities, and his firm, Radulescu LLP, operates out of both New York City and Texas. But here's what truly sets him apart. Over his 30-plus-year career, David has litigated more than 75 LED patent cases involving over 150 LED patents. That's an achievement that we believe is unparalleled in the U.S., putting him in a league of his own. With a client list spanning 3 decades in the LED lighting industry, his insights and perspectives are second to none. David, hello, and thank you for joining us today for 5 Big Questions.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
David, so glad you're here. Thank you for joining us. Let's set the table with the big picture about how many U.S. patent lawsuits do we see in the lighting industry each year? How many of them are from actual manufacturers of lighting products versus non-practicing entities? And then finally, which types of products do we see most commonly asserted? Is it components? Is it controls? Is it fixtures? What's the big picture?
Well, the big picture is that, first of all, there's about 3,500 general patent litigations that were filed last year, and it's about 2% that are actually in the LED lighting industry. There were 70 by our count, and we keep count of these lawsuits every year. With respect to the non-practicing entities versus manufacturers, generally speaking, across all these 3,500 patent litigations filed in the U.S., about 65% of them are filed by non-practicing entities. And if you look specifically at the LED lighting industry cases, these are the 70 or so, it's probably 3/4 of them that were filed and have been filed by non-practicing entities. The subject matter of these 70 suits, for the most part, they actually follow the money. They follow the products that are being sold. And so with respect to what these patents are directed to, they're of course directed to LED chips, but they're also directed to LED light bulbs. They're directed to LED luminaires because there are massive amounts of those type of products that are being sold every day at big box retailers down to, the mom and pop lighting shop. On the lower end of these cases, you mentioned lighting control. That is an area where there's not a lot of that stuff being sold these days at the big box retailers. So those are the least popular type of cases that are filed. But as time goes on, of course, as more products are being sold, there will be more and more patents directed to those products and more suits to follow.
Yeah, interesting times for sure, and probably good times to be a patent attorney. And when we look at some of these lawsuits, and we mentioned that's a very high percentage that's from people that actually don't make lighting, those non-practicing entities. But when we do see the manufacturers involved, and it's manufacturer versus manufacturer, sometimes we also see distributors or retailers get involved in lawsuits. And sometimes they're just sitting in the middle saying, hey, I'm just selling what I think is a good product from a good brand, and I had nothing to do with the design or the infringement. So what can a retailer or a distributor do to lessen the chances of getting ensnarled in one of these lawsuits?
Yeah, keep in mind that the suits are against the retailers and the distributors because the sale price is the largest. You may have a light bulb or a fixture that has a 10-cent LED in it, and you'd rather go after the light bulb that's selling for $5 or the luminaire that's selling for $100. So the retailers and distributors are the target of these suits. And with respect to what they can do to minimize their entanglement in these type of cases, I think it's very difficult because there's always going to be patent holders coming out of the woodworks if you're successful. If you are selling innovative products and you're successful at it, in other words, making a lot of money, you will be a target of a patent suit, whether it's LED-based chips or luminaire based or light bulb based or driver based. The issue is probably closer to what do you do once you get sued? Like, what can you do once you get sued to minimize the entanglement? And the first thing I'm going to say is, hire the best lawyer with the most experience that you can. I don't consider it much different than hiring a heart surgeon. Do you hire a heart surgeon that has done a couple, or do you hire a heart surgeon that has done a gazillion? Hire someone that has done a ton of these suits so you're in the best position to react, number one. And number two, you also want to be in a position of strength. You want to be in a position where you're not simply caving and folding and just paying cash, because you will get a reputation. So as a retailer or a distributor, you really want to come forward with as strong of a defense as you can. And hopefully at the same time, the manufacturer of the product that is generally responsible is picking up the tab or is backing you. And so my second comment would be to minimize this entanglement. Try to focus on manufacturers and try to get them to indemnify and stand behind their products, which is not easy, right? There's some companies that are really good at getting their manufacturers to step up to the plate and cover the financial responsibility. And those companies don't have to worry as much about these litigations, in contrast to companies that are doing business with manufacturers that, aren't really there for them. And that's a more difficult challenge for a business.
That's good advice. Yeah, choose your partners carefully and use indemnification clauses and hold harmless clauses, et cetera, to help protect you. Of course, doesn't make you impervious, but it could help lessen the chances of facing some serious financial exposure there. And an excellent answer on that. And then, it wouldn't be a discussion about the lighting industry and patents if we didn't talk about what is probably one of the more popular programs, licensing programs of its kind by one of the major patent holders in the industry. The largest lighting company in the world is Signify. They famously have a licensing program called Enabled. And you've been an adversary of Signify in numerous lawsuits over the years, David. So from that perspective, and I realize you probably can't speak specifically to certain cases, but just generally speaking, what do you see to the strengths of that Enabled program and maybe some of the vulnerabilities of it?
Yeah, with respect to the strengths, they've been around a long time. And their program, I think, was started back in about 2008. At this point, they have over 1,400 licensees. So their strength is their numbers. They got a lot of licensees behind them. And with respect to, another strength, of course, is they're the 500-pound gorilla. They got a lot of money, right? And they don't get pushed around, and they're able to use that strength at the bargaining table. Some would say they strong arm the lighting and LED manufacturers and retailers into negotiations, and those are their strengths. Of course, it doesn't go to the merits. It doesn't go to what is the scope of these patents and how strong are these patents. So I would say the weakness, right? The weakness of their program is these days, the patents that are being asserted are different than the ones that were asserted 10 years ago, 12 years ago, where 10 or 12 years ago, you could have patents that cover broader categories of products and most likely your full product line. These days, the patents that are being asserted are ones that are narrower, that are covering smaller categories of products. So one of the major weaknesses in their program going forward is the fact that these patents are not covering the full product line. They're covering very, I'll say, niche type of products. So a weakness is that when you're negotiating on a patent by patent or product by product basis, Signify's in a position where they are having a tougher time signing up licensees. And this actually plays out in the numbers because the Signify does publish how many new licensees they have every year. And this past year, they had approximately 17 in North America, new licensees. And that is an 8-year low. At one point, they had over 50 new licensees in North America, down to 17 this past year. And I think that is a result of the fact that when you negotiate on a patent by patent and product by product basis, less and less companies are willing to cough up percentages of their sales to signify so easily.
It also might be an indication that they have so many already in their stable of licensees that there's fewer new manufacturers to rope into the program. Also, I imagine that some of those color kinetics patents that were so strong that gave some manufacturers fits to design around or sign up for the licensing program, some of those have expired, which might cause some of those, the strength of the patent portfolio. As a business person and journalist now, I look at that and I see that people sometimes use that term that you use, strong arm, and I've even heard people use the term bully. But the other side of that coin is that they've invested lots of research and development, time, effort, expense into that. And just like any patent portfolio, I imagine that there's going to be some patents that are stronger than others. So there's truly kind of a payback to those resources they invested. Is there not, David, that they should maybe get those licensees just by virtue of them owning some strong IP in certain areas?
Well, as I said, 10 years ago, there were color kinetic patents that were being sued on. These days, if you look at the recent suits, they're not, for the most part, directed to any of the old color kinetic patents. The new suits are directed to very, I'll say, niche and narrower in scope products. And I think there are more and more old licensees, when they're evaluating whether or not to renew their license with Signify, are questioning whether or not it's worth the investment. It's worth the payment of these yearly percentages of your sales for this what I'll say smaller subset of narrower patents. And as a result, you're seeing, I think, more and more litigation over these patents, and maybe the GE Current, or I'll say the Current versus Signify case is an example of one where I know you have a question on it, I believe. But in any event, I think as time goes on, there is going to be harder and harder time for Signify to actually, sign up new licensees and to renegotiate under terms that are favorable to them.
Fair enough. And yes, that's one of the ones that have caused a lot of people to chatter this year. Not every IP case gets a lot of chatter in the industry, but when you have a heavyweight fight between Current and Signify, two of the major players in lighting, both billion-dollar plus entities, now in not one but two lawsuits, was curious to get your take on that. The quick summary is, over the past recent years, according to the complaints, Signify has been urging Current to sign up for the program, alleging numerous patents being violated by Current designs. Current proactively, which is an unusual move, Current proactively filed a lawsuit in Boston asking the court to invalidate those assertions, and then Signify filed a suit in Delaware for infringement against Current. So I probably did a mediocre job of recapping it, but I tried to set the table in a brief and concise way. What are your thoughts on that battle, David?
Okay, so of course I'm not involved with it, so I'm going to talk from the perspective of being in the middle of it. But I think based on the complaints that were filed, not only in Boston, but two of them in Delaware by Signify and a bigger one in the International Trade Commission filed by Signify, I think GE's perspective, or I should say Current's perspective, is that these claims of use and infringement, they say, are baseless. So they're in negotiations, or were in negotiations with Signify, and Signify is also taking the position, according to these complaints, that they don't want to talk about the substance. They don't want to talk about the patents. They don't want to talk about the products. They want to talk about the cash. How much is Current going to pay Signify on a product by product basis, year after year? And with Current's management, and I'll say new management, right? They have a new management team. From their perspective, they decided that we're just going to go and challenge these patents, and time will tell if they actually have the wherewithal and war chest to go up against Signify on what is a total of 20 patents now. That's the current perspective as it's playing out in the public complaints. And I'm sure from Signify's perspective, their perspective is they got hundreds of patents, and Current should pay a certain percentage of their sales to cover these patents.
It's a fascinating dispute. The proactive initial suit by Current was super interesting, and watching this play out over what will likely be not just months but years will be an interesting story for sure. And let's talk about those NPEs, the non-practicing entities. These are companies or organizations that own patents and have asserted them in a large percentage of lawsuits, as you mentioned earlier. So I know, David, you're too professional and classy to use the term patent troll, but that's not going to stop me, because in one case, FerRuiz, I feel like they were just basically, they bought a patent from Europe and now are asserting it for some glass lens situation. And there's others though, like Heavy Duty Lighting, who own some old Sharp patents, as well as LedComm, who also have asserted numerous patents. Generally speaking, do these non-practicing entities have some real teeth with with their intellectual property that should be respected and revered?
Well, my response would be, or is, that you really have to do it on a patent by patent or an entity by entity basis. And with respect to Heavy Duty Lighting and LedComm, as you pointed out, the patents that they acquired are from Sharp, and Sharp has traditionally been an innovative company. And the question becomes, for the patents that have been picked up from Sharp and owned by Heavy Duty Lighting and LedComm, what are the scope of these patents? And are they covering products that are broad ranging and expensive products where the lawsuit is justified with respect to the potential settlement? And I think for Heavy Duty Lighting and LedComm, those cases have all been settled, and they've settled pretty quickly without much litigation. So I suspect that the patents aren't broad, aren't covering full product lines, and that these type of suits are more of just going away for $50,000 to $100,000. Of course, I don't have any inside information on that, but for the most part, I suspect that the patents aren't broad ranging. With respect to Ruiz, as you pointed out, I think it's one patent, and if you look at the claims of that patent, as you also pointed out, the products require glass lenses, and if you remember the old days, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the lenses were like paperweights. And the Ruiz patent, my understanding is the claims require glass lenses and rubber gaskets. And I don't think there's a lot of products that are being sold today in big box retailers that are using that type of technology. So that would be an example where the scope of the patent is probably not really covering the products that are being accused. And there again, there's probably going to be a settlement pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's amazing. You just think about buying a patent for who knows how much money, and then you can just monetize it in a kind of like people just make the business decision to write you a 5-figure check just to make something go away, rather than hire an attorney and go through the time, effort, and expense over 18 months to fight it in court.
Yes.
So interesting insights as always. David, I know we got to wrap up, but you got clients to get to. But just kind of last thing, if you're a lighting retailer, distributor, manufacturer, or someone else, and you get a scary letter from a company or from a lawyer asserting patents or accusing them of patent infringement, do you put that letter in the shredder, or what do you do? What do you recommend?
What I recommend is that the company take these letters seriously, and the company engage the best heart surgeon that they can engage, right? So someone that has a lot of experience, not with drafting patents. You don't really want to hire your patent drafter to deal with providing insight and a strategy to how to deal with a threat of suit letter. You want to hire a litigator. And here again, I would say you want to hire a litigator that has a ton of experience dealing with the type of patents that are being asserted, so you can evaluate the risks and the benefits of either responding immediately or holding off on responding, and making a decision as to what's best for your particular company with respect to the risk. And that is going to involve hiring an experienced lawyer that has handled a ton of these type of cases. That would be my recommendation.
David, excellent advice, excellent insights. Really, I hear your annual webinars, and I read your LinkedIn posts from time to time, providing insights into this world, which might not get a lot of people like super excited, but it's really super interesting and important to the lighting industry as a whole. So thank you for all the work that you do, and thank you for taking time out of your day to share your insights. Appreciate you joining us.
You're welcome. Happy to do it.
Hey there, we really enjoyed that discussion. We hope that you did as well. Be sure to click that big LED logo next to me, and what that'll do is subscribe you to our YouTube channel so you don't miss the next 5 Big Questions interview. And YouTube subscribers always receive an early preview to the next interview before we even post it on the Inside Lighting website. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.